of course, this year. And all of these cars lining up now for the grid in iconic 1970s M livery. One or two little differences between the cars so that we can spot them for you as they come through. In qualifying, it was Bill Oberlin, the active US racer from Turner Motorsport, was wearing his Turner Motorsport hat earlier on. Will Turner, take note. He clocked a 1:55.0 for the fastest time in the number 11. Johnny Cecotto, World 350 motorcycle champion before he went into motor racing, and for quite a while, till Loris Capirossi beat him in 1990, he was the youngest ever world champion. 19, if memory serves, when he took the 350 World Championship for Yamaha. Eric van der Poel clocked the third fastest time, 3 times a class winner at Le Mans with the best finish of third. Dirk Adorf, DTM and touring car driver for BMW, clocked the next best time. Steve Soper, immortalised, of course, by John Cleland in British touring car history. Oh, very good sports car driver as well. Remember him spinning and going on to win at what was then Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in a BMW prototype. Harold Gross, another DTM stalwart. Next up, Olaf Manthey, with BMW history before he moved over to Porsche 7 times as a team owner. He's won the 24 hours here. Eddie Cheever, one of the first crop of the BMW junior drivers when he was only 19. Arturo Merzario, next up in the number 17 car. Franciscus von Miel is the current head of BMW Motorsport and M, and Jochen Mass in the number 1 car with a 2 minutes .367. Jochen Mass, who won Le Mans the first time I went there in 1989, and has had a brilliant career. Now, that's how they qualified. However, Johnny Palmer, that's not how they're going to line up. Quite the reverse, in fact.
It really is, because the grid has been entirely flipped around, so that will put the winner from the earlier race, Bill Oberlin, at the back. And yeah, delighted to see how hard Bill's going to be pushing here, because he means business this weekend. Yes, this is a celebratory race, but desperately wants to take the victory, and he's going to have to do it the hard way by overtaking the 10 cars up ahead. And there are some real talents. Yes, a lot of their successes in motorsport came a few years ago now for 1 or 2, but there's going to be elbows out racing, not least from those 2 on the front row. Jochen Mass, as you say, 1989 Le Mans winner, starting in the number 3 car from pole position.
There was a little Le Mans start with the drivers, some of them sauntering to their BMW C2s, in fairness, M2 CS Racing cars, rather. With the German flag being waved by none other than former FIA president and World Rally co-driver and team manager at Le Mans, Jean Todt, did the honours. He's seen quite a lot of the 50 years that BMW M and Motorsport have been involved. You'll see a lot of the reviving of the old M logo, the roundel of BMW surrounded by the now legendary colours of the M stripes. Well, that has been revived in this anniversary year, and you can get that on your BMW M road car now, on the wheel centres, as well as a special badge on the front and the back. Steve Soper, almost inseparable from BMW, really. I do maintain, JP, that you cannot make a car look worse by putting the BMW Motorsport or Motorrad stripes on it.
Yeah, it's iconic, instantly recognisable. The M Power, blue, red, white and black, and adorning all of the 11 cars on the grid today. It just means business, and particularly with BMW's heritage around this place on the Nordschleife. We're using the Grand Prix track for this Legends race. But fabulous that so many drivers associated with BMW and through various bits of its history. You wonder whether, you cut some of these guys open and they will bleed two-tone blue and red.
Well, Johnny Cecotto certainly on that, in that category. after he jumped out of two-wheeled racing and came into European touring cars for Schnitzer. He had a little sojourn with Volvo and Alfa Romeo, but with CBM Sport and Team ISA driving for BMW. Drove for BMW in the World Championship as well, and then went back to what was still then Charlie Lamb's Schnitzer team from 89 onwards. Came FINA Motorsport, of course, in 92, when he finished 4th in the German DTM. His best result there, 2nd in 1990. Fine racing driver. STW as well, the Super Tourenwagen with Team Bugatti, again with BMW, and even in British touring cars in 1995, finished 12th in the championship for BMW Motorsport team. Of course, raced at Le Mans as well, Johnny Cecotto, for Bugatti in the team BMW Motorsport McLaren, because they provided the engine for the McLaren F1 GTR, and then raced the prototype in 1998 with Pierluigi Martini and Joe Winkelhock. Even did a bit of Bathurst as well. I think you could call Johnny Cecotto an all-rounder, fair to say. Now, from the back, Bill Oberlin, who is the most successful top-class driver in US sports car history. He captured that last year now. Still active in both the Pilot Challenge and the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for BMW, racing the GT4 and the GT3 versions of their BMW M4s and M3s. And he's going to have to do it the hard way in this race. Now, the last time I did anything like this with quote-unquote legends, it ended with a lot of broken cars at turn 1 of Hockenheim. And that was about 5 years ago, when a certain Mr. Le Mans missed his breaking point and took out some of his former colleagues.
Ouch.
Yes.
At Hockenheim. Well, the tricky thing is for these guys is we're using the Grand Prix track, but they're also using the
quick kink.
Quick kink. So that means a sharp right, sharp left, not the Mercedes arena. There's always a pinch point into the first corner, John.
Green lights are on. This is the green flag lap. They've had a run round behind the safety car, having provided us with the entertainment of a 4 Le Mans start, running across the track, walking, sauntering across the track. But now in grid order, this is the green flag lap. John Hindhaugh and Johnny Palmer with you. And this is the first competitive action of the TotalEnergies ADAC Nürburgring 24-hour Saturday. We'll be back with you, of course, for all the build-up to the main event, and then uninterrupted coverage all the way through from 4 o'clock Central European time today until tomorrow. Down the hill towards the Goodyear hairpin, down at Mittelhoek. And it is then Jochen Mass who leads them around. Joining him on the front row, alongside his number 3, will be the number 50, 5-0. It's 50 glorious years for BMW M and Motorsport. Franciscus van Meel, the head of M. Behind them, P3, number 7 is Arturo Merzario. And he's got Eddie Cheever in the 51 alongside him. Olaf Manthey, right in the middle of the grid, the number 55, has Harold Gross for company in 6th position. On row number 4, Steve Soper from the UK still has the Union flag on his helmet. Dirk Adorf, real German hero around these parts, drove all sorts around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Row 5, Eric van der Poel in the number 2 car, Johnny Cecotto in the number 1, which I think befits a world champion, even if he was a motorcycle world champion. And 64 is Bill Oberlin on the back of the grid in position number 11. The other, apart from being a BMW legend, you have to be over 50 years old for this as well. So you have to be at least as old as BMW M and Motorsport, which I think is a really nice touch. So these guys really are legends. If you're wondering why there aren't any more contemporary drivers, although, as I say it, JP, fair to say that Bill Oberlin is still plying his trade over in the States in IMSA with some gusto and still competing right at the sharp end of the field.
Yes, so it may not have been too much of a surprise to people to see him go so well in qualifying for this event and actually 0.4 of a second clear of the rest of the field. But I think, you know, the guys that will be starting from the front row and therefore the slowest in qualifying will have been just saving themselves for this 30-minute race. You don't want to give it all away in qualifying, and actually a qualifying session that delivers a grid in exactly the reverse. So maybe Jochen Mass, that was his game plan, to go a little more slowly so he could bag pole position.
Well, I'm not sure when that decision was made, actually, so I'm not sure that perhaps it was being quite as mercurial as all that. Waiting for Bill Oberlin to pull up on the back of the grids. The green flag has been shown. 50 glorious years of BMW M and Motorsport being celebrated in 2022, and the BMW Race of Legends on the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit is underway. Franciscus van Beel in the number 50 car, the man at the head of M Sports. Motorsport at M is leading away, and the almost inevitable coming together at the back. Erik van der Poel, Olaf Manthey is in there, and Dirk Adorf in there as well. Some really big names in this race, and 3 of them have not made it past turn 2.
I did talk about the famous start to this lap, didn't I? The flick-flack there, Yokohama S, and 3 of them, one climbing over the top of the other one. I think that was Erik van der Poel, who was battling with Olaf Manthey, who got a really good run up the inside, actually, going into that tricky first corner, but it was almost too good a run. Manthey not able to get the car stopped, and van der Poel is still beached in the stones. That's going to certainly be yellow flags and possibly a safety car.
Bill Oberlin has already made up positions from the back of the grid at the moment. The number 44, Harold Gross, is leading them through as they drop down towards the far end, the southern end. In fact, they've come through that. They're through the Schumacher S as well. I wonder if they're using the shorter circuit there. I was expecting them to take a little longer. Here they come to drop down the hill towards the Vidal chicane. Safety car has been deployed and is waiting for them at Vidal. And that beautifully liveried safety car has picked up the whole field. Those of you with long memories will remember the more curvy livery in the BMW M Sport stripes that the old Batmobiles had, the 635i's. So the start, there was a variety of quality of starts there. Off the line, very short hold on the red lights, Johnny.
Yes, it was, and then creeping through, our current race leader behind the safety car, Harold Gross, who really hauls away well and manages to overtake 2 or 3. Now Manthey in the 55 is going to get hooked up with van der Poel, and Dirk Adorf on the back of the Dutchman as well, and it's van der Poel who mounts briefly, the car being driven by Olaf Manthey, and poor old Dirk Adorf nowhere to go.
Heck of a bit of avoidance by Bill Oberlin, who got a really nice start and made up a couple of positions. It was 4 BMW M2 Club Sports wide, CS wide, maybe was the 5 there, and Oberlin had to actually come to a stop to be able to avoid what was going on, and dropped all the way back to the tail of the field, albeit that wasn't 11th, it was 8th at that point, because 3 guys had caught, there was 5. There may have been 6 across the track at one point. Half the field all trying to get into the same area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 BMW M2s, and it was indeed van der Poel, as Johnny Palmer said, who was up on 2 wheels for a moment, saving his tyres. Olaf Manthey struggling back with the hazard flashes on to the pit lane.
Well, Adorf did an incredibly good job, because he selected reverse, buried the right foot, and got the required traction to actually get out of that gravel trap. Manthey has recovered the situation, but his car's in a very sorry state now, touring around the Grand Prix circuit, and Olaf Manthey just reaching the pit lane now. But it is Eric van der Poel's car, sadly. I was looking forward to seeing how Eric might get on in this race. He'd started very well, but just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and needing now some outside assistance to recover his car. I'm not sure whether he's going to be allowed to continue as well, but he'll be at least a lap down.
Yeah, the top 3, make that the top 4, qualifying within a... make that the top 5 within a second, and the top 3 were in within half a second. It's been extremely competitive at the sharp end of the field. Bill Oberlin qualified on a 55 flat, Johnny Cecotto 55.4, Eric van der Poel at 55.6, Dirk Adorf 55.9, Steve Sauber 56 flat. So given that they had limited amount of practice time fitting in around the other activities here, they've adapted to these very impressive M2 CS Racings. This is now the entry point for the BMW M cars as the Jason Aldean's big green tractor pulls the car out of the kitty litter, and Olaf Manthey, his car getting a bit of remedial action, but he's dropped a lap away, as I think has Van der Poel now as well.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
So it is Harold Gross that leads. Steve Sauber has picked his way through the carnage from 7th on the grid to 2nd in the number 7 car. Johnny Cecotto from 8th on the grid must have followed him through. He's in 3rd in the number 1 car. Bill Oberlin up to 4th place from the back of the grid, and then the back of the race. Got a decent start, made up some positions, then had to pretty much pull the car up, have a quick cup of tea, and roll round everybody else. But now has recovered back to 4th position. Then Arturo Merzario, Eddie Cheever in 6th. 7th, the number 50, is Franciscus von Miel. And behind that, Jochen Mass kept out of problems. And I think Dirk Adorf, JP, has managed to get back on the back of the remaining cars. It looks like Van der Poel won't be able to continue, and Olaf Manthey is in the pit lane.
Yeah, Dirk, as I say, very much the innocent party, with 2 cars colliding side to side in front of him, one of them going up on 2 wheels, and Dirk just had to really follow suit into the gravel trap. Adorf with the lime green windscreen visor. So Van der Poel up on 2 left side tyres. Manthey, Olaf Manthey in the 55 car, also at fairly low speed heading towards the tyres there. But Dirk Adorf, thankfully, with rear wheels still in the gravel, but he had the least distance to travel in reverse and managed to get the required traction, as I mentioned.
Right rear wheel was still just on the green, and I think that's what saved him.
Yeah.
I think that's what saved him. 23 minutes left to go. Safety car lights are out. Harold Gross waving left and right to get some heat and clean up the Goodyear tyres. These cars in the spec that the German series will be running this year. As I say, this car now the entry level for BMW M Racing, and Eric van der Poel without his trademark wide brim hat there because he has got the helmet on. Safety car into the pits. Eric van der Poel playing to the crowd down at the arena. So the field now under the control of Harold Gross as they come out of the final corner of the Coca-Cola curve, and right on his tailpipes, Steve Sauber was looking down the inside into the last corner there as the green flag is waving again. With just on 22 minutes to go, Sauber shapes to the right-hand side to have a look. In 3rd place, Johnny Cecotto holding a watching brief. The moment Sauber's gone through. Sauber's gone through into the lead. Came from a very long way back there into the first corner. And Bill Oberlin right there as well. Top 4 separated by absolutely nothing at all. And then it's Arturo Merzario and Eddie Cheever, the top 6 then, battling ahead of BMW M and Motorsport Franciscus van Miel and the rest of the field trails through. But I think that is Soper's number 7 in the lead. Yes, it is. Slightly different colour scheme on some of these cars. It's very subtle, with the shade bands being different colours. Now down the inside for second place at the bottom of the hill. There's a little touch between Cecotto and Bill Oberlin, and that's going to cost Oberlin 4th position.
Yeah, wheel rubbing, wheel banging coming out of the Dunlop Carer there, and now Oberlin finds himself within the clutches of the two behind, so Arturo Merzario and Eddie Cheever in that vicinity. So Oberlin goes from attacking mode to having to keep the elbows out on the run up the hill. Dirk Adorf, remember, trying to recover too. Now he was able to cling on to that lead lap and has just gone around the outside of Francescus van Meel. So he picks off a spot as well. Dirk Adorf, I reckon, up to 8th, possibly 7th position after that overtake. But this is how Steve Soper got the lead, John. He
was a very long way back in the pit lane exit there, but left his braking super late. Cecotto tried to dive through and follow him through. That slightly held him up by the time they got down to the bottom of the hill, and that made a little bit of interest for Bill Oberlin, who then was side by side with, for a moment, with Merzario, and now it's Cecotto and Oberlin who are trading Goodyear rubber as they were rubbing their wheels together. Cecotto tries to hold on down into the first corner, and Bill Oberlin is, well, I wonder what he thought about the reverse grid. He's sort of overcome that almost straight away. But he's got up into 3rd position, and now the next target is Harold Gross in 2nd, and the leader is still Steve Soper. He's a bit of an animal, apparently.
According to some, yes. Top 4, though, starting to break away, aren't they? And Bill Oberlin now up to 3rd position, but Johnny Cecotto's hanging on to the coattails of those 3 that lead. Harold Gross possibly with a bit more speed here and there than Steve Soper. Soper kicking the tail out as they leave the Dunlop Carer at the bottom of the hill. And there's a nice little batch developing for 5th place as well, with Arturo Merzario leading Eddie Cheever and Dirk Adorf, the recovering Dirk Adorf in the lime green windscreen visor. So Hill's just coming over the brown now. In fact, he's going to have a long look at the inside at Cheever. They're both going to go through, I think, on Merzario. Great move.
And there goes Adorf side by side with Cheever, and they're trading some more BMW pin on. That's a broken right front steering, I think, for
tyre
left front for Cheever. How did the steering arm hold on for Adolf there? So Adolf literally elbows out, fighting his way through, and that is damage to Eddie Cheever. Indianapolis weekend, of course, this weekend he won the greatest spectacle in motorsport in 1998. Needed Neil here for that. I was absolutely certain that Adolf's number 10 had broken its steering there.
Well, was able to turn right sufficiently. I assume it got through the NKG chicane at the end of the lap as well, but Adolf had a real tank slapper after that shove from his right-hand side. Certainly gloves off racing this, isn't it? In the top 4 right together now, John.
Frisky plus 50-year-olds out on the track at the moment, with Steve Soper being now chased by Harold Gross in 2nd. It's still Oberlin, Bill Oberlin from the US in 3rd position, the man from California, Redondo Beach. And 1 or 2 interesting lines being taken further down the field. In fact, I think that was Arturo Merzario just trying to avoid Eddie Cheever, who was struggling with damage on his car. Top 4 absolutely together, and a very wide line being taken by Johnny Cecotto at the back of that group. Will that give him a better run up the hill towards the Michael Schumacher S?
Yeah, climbing back up the hill, I noticed that Dirk Adolf's car has actually pitted, so that was him, I think, struggling to get through the chicane, maybe with the broken steering, which hit a little bit later on. The number 10 car is in. Oh no, his tyre's down too. And that's the front right for Adolf and the front left for Eddie Cheever. And Cheever didn't make the pits. Dirk Adolf has done, pitting from what is now 8th position for him. But the top 4, Steve Soper, Harold Gross, Bill Oberlin up to 3rd, Johnny Cecotto 4th.
And a tyre being dashed up to that car. They weren't expecting to do pit stops here, Not sure where they will have got the spare from. May have taken that from the 12th car that isn't running at the moment. Proper touring car lines through the chicanes, all four wheels on the curbs or beyond as they head round to complete another lap, which will be the end of lap number 6. And it is still Steve Soper from in second place. Bill Oberlin now has nipped into second ahead of Harold Gross, so that is a change on that last lap whilst we were occupied by looking at what was going on in the pit lane. Cecotto comes from a long way back on Gross down into the first corner. Can he get it stopped? Yes, he's a former motorcyclist. That was a proper block pass down there into the first corner.
Yeah, fully crossed up, wasn't it? Oh, he's on the grass though now as well, and he's going to lose the position. So all that hard work at the first couple of corners for Johnny Cecotto, but running out wide, coming through that second part of the Yokohama S and out onto the grass. No traction there. We've had a fair bit of rain in the lead up to this 24-hour race, so no grip when you leave the circuit. Bill Oberlin, as you can tell now from the lights flashing, is getting a little impatient behind Steve Soper, trying for a way by at the Dunlop. And Soper again is sideways for at least the third time in this race. Oberlin a much cleaner exit.
And he's going to be on the inside for the next left-hander, and Bill Oberlin has completed the run back then with still 15 minutes to go. Reverse grid. He started on row 6. He then got held up at the first corner when Dirk Adorf rear-ended Manthey, which is what caused that incident. A lovely overtake at the same part of the lap last time around to get Bill Oberlin into second past Dirk Adorf. Dirk Adorf, by the way, 80 years old, so holding his own against drivers who are 2/3 of his age, perhaps. Everybody has to be over 50 in this one. Lovely pass by the number 1 into the first corner, Johnny Cecotto, and then just overcooked it. And then coming out of the hairpin at the bottom of the hill, huge sideways slide by Soper. Looked good, but didn't get him forward progress. The Goodyear tyres screaming in pain, I'm sure they're there, under the application of the right foot from Steve Soper. So now it's Bill Oberlin who leads. Now, can Soper hang on to the back of the American? Harold Gross still in third. Cecotto, after that grassy moment, JP, has just dropped away for a moment.
Yeah, but I think he'll get a second or maybe even third wind in this race. It's had all sorts of action taking place. Jochen Mass still in the race with the orange windshield stripe. That car in 7th spot. It started from pole position, remember, and hasn't yet been in the pits. There's no anything in the regulations to say that you need to make a pit stop, but several have, including Dirk Adorf in the number 10 car, frantically getting the work required, but they are now waving in the air to suggest that that might be done for the number 10.
23 appearances in Formula 1, netting him 18 starts for Theodore and Tolman for Jochen Mass. But we think of him most, don't we, at Le Mans 1981, 96 and 1998 for Jochen Mass. My apologies, that was my wrong notes. That was Johnny Cecotto I was talking about there, who's in 4th position. Because I know that Jochen Mass won in the year that I was first there with Manuel Reuter in 89.
Plenty of curb and a bit of dirt there taken by Steve Soper again. That's a similar line that he was using when he was leading the race. Just dropped about half a second last time through. It might be up to 3/4 of a second as a race lead for Bill Oberlin. So it's over a second. 1.3 now is the gap. So Soper having to contend with the approaches of Harold Gross, who crosses the line in that 3rd position. And Johnny Cecotto with the flag of Venezuela in the rear passenger window. Still running a good 4th place. And that, despite that grass tracky moment at this point of the circuit, exiting turn 2, he's gathered things up nicely, and pursuing Harold Gross for that final spot on the podium.
And he'll want that. He'll feel he's had that already, and then gave it away with a little bit of brio coming out of turn 2 in that early part of the lap. He really likes the Cecotto with the white shade band, really likes the late turning. And this time, Gross just holds him off there for a moment. Who gets the better exit from the bottom of the hill? A little bit of a sideways moment for Gross. Now losing traction. That has proved costly when we've seen other drivers do that. This is the battle for the third step on the podium through the Michael Schumacher S. Amazing that we have a completely blank race control screen, by the way. Nothing being looked at. Nobody has been...
They've gone for lunch. That's the reason why this race was scheduled at this time in the day. Do it whilst race control are away.
Yeah, like it. Oberlin beginning to stretch away, but it's the battle for third coming down the hill now and towards the Vidal chicane with Harold Gross holding that position. Johnny Cecotto wanting it. Behind them, it's Arturo Merzario, who's in 5th position, needing a little gaggle there, which has in 6th position the head of BMW M, Franciscus van Meel, in the number 50 car. And then it's Jochen Mass. I think Eddie Cheever. Is Eddie Cheever running again? I think he might be. Oh no, that car's stranded, isn't it? Out by the chicane. Yeah. So Dirk Adorf, I'm afraid, along with Olaf Manthey, Eddie Cheever, and Eric van der Poel, who didn't get past turn 2. Now here's Cecotto. That's a nice overtake.
Yeah, good drive out of turn 2, out of the left-hand element of the Haug hook at the start of the lap, and yeah, got alongside. Crucial inside line for the third corner, and that is cemented. So it was all about the exit out of the flick-flack at the start of the lap, and back into third position, and Johnny's going to be thinking now, I've got to stay here and try and reel in Steve Soper if possible, because Steve's been charging hard on that set of tyres, remember. The rears will not be too happy about the abuse that Steve Soper's been giving them, particularly down at the Dunlop hairpin, to haul himself back up the hill. So I just wonder, with still just under 10 minutes to go, Johnny Cecotto with a chance of catching the second place man.
And yeah, exactly. We've still got just under 10 minutes to go. We're lapping at round about the 2-minute mark, so that's 5 laps probably to the end of the race. And Bill Oberlin, I think, has probably done enough. And I would never say that Bill would soft pedal the car. We've seen him do some tremendous fuel-saving runs this season, in fact, for Turner Motorsport. Came up slightly short at Mid-Ohio. Franciscus van Meel, who has taken over the reins of BMW Motorsport and M. BMW also have acquired Alpine as well. The tuning house. Alpina, sorry, my apologies. Brought that in-house as well. Franciscus succeeding Michael Crack. Moved into Formula One, of course. And having some fun here. I did notice as well in the pit lane that the founder or co-founder of BMW Motorsport, Jochen Mass, was around this weekend, still mentoring the BMW Junior team. Jochen is an absolute legend in BMW circles, and the stories of him with the M brand in the States, particularly when they first went to compete over there, are legendary in themselves. So down to the last 7.5 minutes of the BMW Race of Legends. Here's how it stands. Bill Oberlin has pushed to almost a 3-second lead from in second place Steve Soper. Johnny Cecotto now in third position, just beginning to close in on Steve Soper, and Cecotto with that very tidy driving style, Johnny Palmer, is beginning to see that number 7 car get a little larger in front of him.
I think that's right, yeah. The gap has come down lap to lap. Cecotto crosses the line. They were about level there, so actually Soper's responding a little bit. They've managed to produce, for each car, the best lap of the race there, 156.0 for Steve Soper. Neither of them can match Bill Auberlin's pace, though, so he's pulled away a little bit. But with 6.5 minutes just under to go, Johnny Cecotto, as we mentioned, has been preserving his tyres where possible. It's fairly brutal in the early stages, but he's kept things neat and tidy since then. Harold Gross heading down the hill at the Nürburgring, then towards the Dunlop hairpin, still in 4th position. But that gap looks insurmountable at the moment. There is always a change for the 2nd and 3rd places, though, potentially, as Arturo Merzario running in 5th position. His race turned into a bit of a lonely one now, but it was action-packed at the start.
As he comes down the curving downhill run, look for the 2nd of the entry roads on the right-hand side. That's round about where your braking marker is, one side or the other of that. Turns it in. He's got his window down. It's quite warm and getting warmer here. Decent weather forecast for at least the first part of the Nürburgring 24, the TotalEnergies ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring this weekend. We'll have all of that for you live, of course. Auberlin easing back just a little bit. There's about 1.5 seconds between Soper and Cecotto. At least there was at the line. Jochen Mass coming through. Jochen ran in Formula 1, of course, for Surtees, McLaren, Arrows, ATS in March. Had 105 starts. Just the one win in Spain in 1975 for Jochen Mass. But, of course, much better known by, I would think, most people watching and listening here, for his runs at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. 2nd in a Porsche in 1982 with Vern Chupin, and won the race with Manuel Reuter and Stanley Dickens in 1989 for the glorious C9, the rumbling Mercedes-Benz. Pretty decent Formula 2 career as well, actually, back in the early 70s for Surtees. And a bit of a battle still going on for this 3rd place, as Cecotto for second place. Yeah, absolutely. So Cecotto has now caught Steve Soper with about, I think maybe one more lap after this one. Soper sliding his BMW M2 around, and I think that's what's costing him time.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been approaching the driving style like that really from the off, and it looks very dramatic, but obviously it's not the quickest way to get around the Nürburgring Grand Prix track. And my thought was, how long are the Goodyear Eagles going to take that punishment happily? And I think Johnny Cecotto, despite the off-track moments he had coming out of turns 1 and 2 not too long ago, he ran off onto the grass, actually he's been very disciplined since then. And, you know, getting the rewards because he matched Bill Auberlin's pace last time. Oh, and Steve Soper completely crossed up there coming through the chicane towards the end of the lap. That's not going to help matters either, because now those Goodyear tyres full of gravel and dust. Although there's a bit of tyre smoke coming off Johnny Cecotto's front left, I noticed, as they were turning through the hairpin there. Well,
he did have a little bit of a side-to-side moment. There's going to be one more lap after this one.
Yeah.
So with 2 minutes and 44 seconds as these two cross the line, and Bill Auberlin is up the road by nearly 4 seconds. Now, Cecotto, well, it's what might have been for Cecotto. You're absolutely right about that left front Goodyear filing the guard, and Soper goes very, very wide coming out of turn 2, but he keeps the momentum on, but dropping right in behind him. Cecotto sees an opportunity, goes to the left-hand side, down the hill, tricky left-hander there with a little bit of braking, maybe not quite enough stopping there to be able to fashion a way through for the former motorcycling ace, now 66 years old, the man from Caracas, Venezuela. Johnny Cecotto is never going to be 66 years old in my head. Tries the long way around. He does like the wide entry. Now, can he do the cutback and get the drive up the hill? We know that Soper tends to step the back out here, but he was neat and tidy that time as they head up towards the Schumacher S.
Yeah, needed to be, I think, because Cecotto would have been right alongside him if he'd been a touch sideways. It's actually the Venezuelan now in Steve Soper's wheel tracks who's slightly more wayward. A minute and 40 left on the clock. They're pounding round here on 1 minute 56s there or thereabouts. So when they cross the line next time around, it'll be one more tour of the Nürburgring Grand Prix track. Bill Oberlin more or less signed, sealed and delivered, but what about the second and the third place fight? Are they going to change around, and how off the track is Steve Soper going to get as they head for the chicane this time around?
He's an old touring car pro. He'll be nailing the curbs here. Cecotto down the inside. What a cheeky manoeuvre from the man from Venezuela, but he comes down the inside, the right-hand side, the final corner. There was a touch there as Soper muscles his way through. He's forgotten nothing of his racetrack, and they hit again as they come to the finish line to start their final lap. 5.5 seconds up the road. Bill Oberlin with his Turner BMW team in the States tuned in. I can tell you, I've had a message from them, and it's still side by side for second and third. Cecotto finally gets it done.
No, that's
Soper's got through.
Back ahead, yeah, he absolutely threw it from miles back and right over the curb in, 1990s touring car style from Steve Soper. Superb to watch, and Johnny Cecotto just had to get out of the way. But this was the overtake from Cecotto into the chicane, and as you said, described it as very, very cheeky, because it didn't look like that was on for a long haul up the hill, and that was Soper right over the curb.
I thought Cecotto was through there at turn one. I thought he'd just ease off the brakes and go round the outside. But the pass at the Vidal chicane from Cecotto, once again, an absolute motorcycle pass. Got the car in position and then just stood it up in the middle of the corner. The last couple of corners for second and third are going to be very, very interesting. Bill Oberlin will be giggling away to himself a back to front victory. He's had to come from the back twice with the reverse grid and then having to stop the car at the first corner to avoid the accident in front of him. And he's fought his way through. He's going to win this by something around 6 seconds. But is it going to be Cecotto or Soper? Cecotto was actually ahead at the line as they went across the line last time around. Bill Oberlin has lifted off, probably so he can see what's going on behind him as they come to the chicane for the final time. Soper goes very, very deep indeed, drops his right-hand Goodyears into the dirt and then on the grass, and here's Cecotto down the inside of the final corner. It's going to be a sprint to the line in front of our commentary box. There's no doubt in my mind that Jean Todt will see something very special here as he waves the checkered flag. Oberlin's got through Cecotto. Cecotto has stolen it in the last few yards with grassy moments, I think, for both of them there as they came through the last couple of corners. Steve Soper just trying too hard, and a phenomenal response from the crowd down there. So what happened at the last couple of corners, JP?
Well, as always, Steve Soper hurled it into the NKG chicane, then lost it on the exit, and two wheels on the grass, bounced back on again into the hairpin that ends the lap. Cecotto to the inside. Steve Soper, I think, caught the grass on the exit of that corner as well. But he was drifting his way all over the place. I thought the thing was going to actually pirouette on Steve Soper there, so he did very well to keep it on the straight and narrow and then make hard standing before the end of the lap, but just couldn't get the car turned in with no grip on the Goodyear Eagles at that point. But formation flying afterwards with the race winner between the second and the third place finishers, Bill Oberlin, as you quite rightly were saying, slowing down so he could get a cracking view of that finish behind him in the door mirrors, and a brilliant display from all involved, actually. A real shame for Eric van der Poel from right at the start, but that was pretty good to watch as well. Just meant he couldn't get any racing laps in.
How about Howard Gross in fourth position? I think the oldest driver in the field. And then, for sake of probity, I'll give you the other finishers. Arturo Merzario was in fifth. A very, very impressive sixth position for the head of BMW M and Motorsport, Franciscus von Meel. Behind him was Jochen Mass, and they were the only 7 finishers, with Dirk Adorf, Eddie Cheever, and Olaf Manthey succumbing to issues with their cars after contact. Eric van der Poel not getting any further on. 5.5 seconds, the margin of victory for Turner Motorsport's Bill Auberlen from the IMSA series. Still an active racing driver, and he put all of his experience and racecraft to good use there to beat former motorcycle world champion Johnny Cecotto and BMW legend in his own right. Number 1 car coming through in second, and Steve Soper in third will take the final step on the box. Auberlen, Cecotto, Soper. Wow! The BMW Race of Legends has delivered, ahead of Harold Gross in 4th and Merzario in 5th, with Van Meel in 6th position. And nice to see the respect and the interest shown by FIA former president Jean Todt, who waved the German flag for the Le Mans start, for a little bit of a photo opportunity for the drivers jogging across the track, and also the checkered flag at the end of the race. I enjoyed that.
I think everybody involved in the race did. I think everybody in the grandstands on the Grand Prix track loved it as well, by the sound of the reception as Bill Auberlen crossed the line to take the win. The main grandstand on the straight and down at the Mercedes Arena as well absolutely erupted.
Clearly enjoyed by you all the way around the world, although I'm told that Will Turner had told Bill that if he could win from the back of the grid, there'd be a sizable donation to his retirement fund. Apparently Bill's picked out a very nice retirement home down in Florida. I think that's Will Turner just having a little bit of a dig there. The checkbook will have to go. Tacos normally is what the Turner Motorsport team celebrate a victory with. I'm not sure where Bill's going to find them in this area of the world, but Bill proving that he can translate his current skills very nicely. And once a racer, always a racer, right the way through the field. Johnny Cecotto coming home to an excellent second position, fighting all the way at the end. What might have happened if he hadn't delayed himself by going off the track a couple of times there, JP? He might have even been able to give Bill Auberlen a run for his money. Their qualifying times were not that far apart. No, and the other thing, I think, when you're considering Bill Auberlen's run to the flag, he also had to avoid the carnage at turn 1 with 3 cars going off in front of him, leaping on the brakes with both feet and keeping it out of the gravel and out of the tyre wall, so needing then to tack onto the back and work his way slowly through the order. But very early on, we could have lost Bill Auberlen there in the turn 1 crash that involved 3 other machines. But yeah, I mean, superb, and just really sorry for the 4 that didn't get much further than basically lap 5, and Eric van der Poel retired much earlier on than that, although he was playing with the crowd and you know, making it obvious that he was very, very upset about the whole situation. Brilliant entertainment to commemorate and celebrate 50 years, half a century of BMW M and the BMW Motorsport brand. Sees Bill Auberlen ahead of Johnny Cecotto and Steve Soper in 3rd position. We'll get them back onto the podium and give them their let them have their just celebrations after that half-an-hour race. I have a suspicion that Bill Auberlen would have liked to be doing the full race here. I've talked to Bill about that a few times over in the States. He'll next be in action, of course, in IMSA. It's quite a way from where their paddock is to the podium, and I'm just trying to work out where we're going to get them. They are going to use the main podium. I can see a podium party just setting themselves up. So the American current racer, but still racing, just past his 50th year, which was a requirement to take part in the Race of Legends, has taken the top step as the cars are coming back in. a lesson for any manufacturer, by the way. If you put your legends into a race in bright, shiny racing cars, not all of them are going to come back the way they went out, Johnny.
I think that's a fair comment, but I do believe that BMW have a few spare parts here this weekend for the M2 Racing Cup car, and they were probably given strict instructions to knock a few corners off them if they wanted to. You know, if you're bogged down in the midfield, have a bit of fun, fellas, because you know, your loyalty to the brand over the years, you kind of deserve that. But if you kept out of trouble and just about on the straight and narrow, then those three drivers that we talked so much about are heading to the podium. Steve Soper might have fallen off in the closing stages, but just clung on to third position.
Before the race started, there was a great collegiate atmosphere down on the grid with Jean Todt having a good chat with all the drivers. And before we got underway, as the drivers got kitted up, we actually had a recreation of a Le Mans start. Some of the drivers were more sprightly than others. Remember, Howard Gross is 80 years old. Reverse grid from the qualifying times set earlier in the weekend. It was a very short hold indeed that sent the cars down to the first corner, and a little conflagration that took out Olaf Manthey, Eric van der Poel, and ultimately Dirk Adorf. Their three M2s stuck down there. Van der Poel coming off the worst. He was actually, I think his car was, well, no, he did have some damage on the right front. I was about to say, I think his car was the least damaged, but playing to the crowd down there. And when you've got former touring car drivers in a field, then you are going to have a bit of panel rubbing, aren't you?
Yeah, it's always going to be the natural case, and there was plenty of that because the cars are so evenly matched, and actually a lot of the drivers turned out to be as well. Then they were really getting their sleeves rolled up and the elbows out in cases. Loved that move from Steve Soper as he smacked the curb, but got the car a couple of feet up in the air as he did at the first corner, and then at the end of the very same lap all over the grass to, unfortunately for him, give away the second place to Johnny Cecotto. But both cars, or all three cars actually, had been worked very, very hard throughout. Testament to what a great build this brand new car is, with some classic drivers at the wheels.
The track services contingent putting everything back in. That is the only race that will be running today on the Grand Prix circuit, so now the configuration has to be changed back to allow the cars to go out onto the Nordschleife, onto the Hatzenbach. The Race of Legends carbon steering wheel trophies bearing the throwback roundel BMW blue and white, surrounded by the BMW M colours in the quadrants around that roundel. That available again as an addition to your BMW M Series car, and you can have it on your wheel caps as well. Nice little celebration from the car company as a whole to its motorsport and tuning brand after 50 years of turning out some truly fabulous machines. And in with a real shout here for the big race, the TotalEnergies ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring, with BMWs being very quick indeed throughout the week, and probably three teams and at least 5 cars in with a more than decent chance of making this a very impressive weekend for BMW indeed. Already the pit lane starting to come to life for that main race, with 138 cars on the entry list, and we think we'll get 135 to start. Still waiting to hear what's going on down at Glickenhaus. They had a problem with their fuel, with their water pump yesterday. An electric water pump failed, and they thought they might have done some engine damage. So they were, I think, overnight looking at an engine change. Franciscus van Meel having a chat with Jean Todt, and it looks like we are ready for the podium celebrations. and the formalities. Good to see that Franciscus can have a bit of a smile about the damage in the cars that didn't quite make it to the end. That's called providence, that, though, isn't it, Johnny?
I think, yeah, pretty much, indeed, yeah. It's a shame because I'm sure they wanted an incident-packed race, but they didn't want to eliminate basically 3 cars at the start. But you did warn us, John. You said the last Legends race that you called 5 years ago ended up in somewhat of a pile-up at the first corner, so that was repeated. Anyway, podium now on the way.
I think they're going to get everybody up onto the podium.
Oh, good stuff.
To be honest. Arturo, Merzario in the hat. Harold Gross first having a chat.
Und ich habe mich auch gewundert über meine konditionelle Verfassung. Mein Auto war im Top-Zustand und ich habe gedacht, lässt dir den Johnny und den Steve vorbei, die halten sich gegenseitig auf. Schon dein Auto ein bisschen und dann schlägst du zu. Aber die Rechnung ist nicht ganz aufgegangen.
Nicht ganz. Okay, Harald, gehst du mal vor. Arturo
Brilliant stuff. 4th position for Harold Gross. He clearly has enjoyed himself.
He will give the trophy. Arturo, great to see you back at the Nürburgring. It's a special place for you, isn't it?
He's very, very happy for the Nürburgring circuit. It's 15 years is a race here. It's fantastic.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. So please join Harald Groß. Dann machen wir weiter. Auch hier einer, der ziemlich verschwitzt ist und ziemlich fertig aussieht. Jochen Mass, Olaf Manthey, die nächsten, die mit dazukommen. Kommt auch bitte nach vorne.
Bit of chat between friends there, Jochen Mass and...
Jochen Mass muss auch erstmal durch, Stefan. Danke, dass du hier warst. Jochen, toller Platz für dich. Nürburgring, immer wieder schön, ne?
Ja, natürlich. Das ist schon irgendwo ein Genuss. Man muss sich nur gut einschießen mit dem Auto. Und da brauche ich, glaube ich, noch ein bisschen.
Okay, aber was schön, dass du warst. Auch mit rüber zu Arturo Merzario, Harald Groß. Die 3 Erstplatzierten.
Typical racing driver wanted. He said not bad for my first time in the car.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Steve Silver next up.
Harald Groß, Arturo Merzario. Ich weiß nicht, haben wir sonst noch Fahrer von ihm nicht mehr.
I like Harold Gross's throwback. I think they're genuinely old overalls, those. Olaf Manthey up on the platform as well. Steve Silver now. Sideways to 3rd position, if not victory for Steve. Johnny Cecotto. Do you know, other than losing the big hair, he's not changed that much, Cecotto.
Looking good, isn't he? Very good, yeah.
And he's still clearly hugely competitive and quick in a car. Top step of the podium. Bill Oberlin from Redondo Beach, California. He takes the top step of the podium for Turner Motorsport, for BMW and for the USA.
Für den Sieger.
Well, the national anthem of the United States of America. 2 US drivers, of course, driving for BMW today and into tomorrow, with Connor De Filippi and Neil Verhagen both in with a chance in with their run. Here comes Jean Todt. presenting Johnny Cecotto. And here is Franciscus van Meel, the CEO of BMW M and BMW Motorsport, took part in the race and gets to present the trophy. What would have happened if he'd been on the podium? He would have to present the trophy to himself.
Yeah, I think he would. Yeah, with the champagne now about to be sprayed, and Francesca does the sensible thing in dodging clear. But Bill Auberlen getting a deserved dousing there after, well, through the middle part of the race, starting to dominate, but he had to work very, very hard before that. And the boys either side of him still making sure that he can't leave the podium bone dry.
No, he was very quick with the spring, was Auberlen, because he's got recent experience of that as well.
Yeah, good point.
Fairness, you know, you never lose it. Clearly, when you saw it from the other guys, you never lose it in the driving, and you never lose it in the spraying the champagne. But more recent experience from Bill Auberlen. So the BMW Race of Legends has been won from the back of the grid by the quickest qualified, Bill Auberlen, in the number 64 car. Hope you have enjoyed that, whetted your appetite for our full coverage in sound and vision of the TotalEnergies 24 hours of the Nürburgring, the ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Congratulations to BMW M and to everybody who worked very hard to put that on, all the drivers. Great to see them. And to Johnny Palmer alongside me, John Hindhaugh. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back to make sure that you don't miss a minute of the build-up to